Worry is a thief. It creeps into your mind, settles in your heart, and drains the very strength you need to move forward. It makes you question, doubt, and fear what tomorrow holds. You wake up carrying the same burdens you went to sleep with, replaying the same thoughts over and over, hoping that somehow by thinking about them long enough, you will find a solution. But worry doesn't fix anything. It doesn't change the situation, and it doesn't bring peace. Instead, it keeps you stuck in fear, stuck in frustration, stuck in a cycle that robs you of the joy and strength God wants you to have. Faith, on the other hand, does the opposite. Faith strengthens you. Faith lifts your spirit, renews your mind, and gives you the confidence to walk forward even when you don't know what's ahead. When you put your trust in God, you shift your focus from the problem to the one who holds the solution. You stop carrying the weight on your own and start leaning on the one who never grows tired, never grows weary, and never fails. You have to ask yourself, what has worrying ever changed? Has it ever made your problems disappear? Has it ever given you a clear solution? No. Worry only magnifies the problem, making it seem bigger than it actually is. But faith shifts your perspective. Faith reminds you that God is bigger than anything you are facing. Faith tells you that no matter what happens, God is in control and His plans for you are good. It's easy to say, trust God, but the real test comes when you're in a situation where nothing makes sense. When you've prayed, but the answer hasn't come. When you've believed, but the door hasn't opened. When you've done everything you can, yet the situation remains the same. That is when faith is tested. That is when you must decide whether you will let worry take over or whether you will stand firm and trust that God is working behind the scenes. Think about a child holding their parent's hand. That child doesn't worry about where they are going, how they will get there, or what obstacles may come their way. They trust that as long as they are holding their parent's hand, they will be safe. That is the kind of trust God wants you to have in Him. He wants you to walk with confidence, knowing that He is guiding you, protecting you, and leading you to exactly where you need to be. The enemy wants to fill your mind with fear. He wants you to believe that things will never change, that you are alone, that you have to figure everything out on your own. But that is a lie. The truth is, God is already working things out for your good. The battle you are worrying about, He has already won it. The problem that seems impossible, He already has the solution. The situation that feels out of control, He is in complete control. You were not created to live in fear. You were not created to be weighed down by worry. You were created to walk in faith, to trust that God is always working, even when you don't see it. When you choose faith over worry, you are making a declaration that God is greater than your circumstances. You are saying, I refuse to let fear control my life. I refuse to let worry steal my peace. I choose to trust God, so let go of what you cannot control. Release the worries that are weighing you down. Surrender the fear that is holding you back. You don't have to carry it anymore. God is asking you to trust Him, to believe that He is working all things together for your good. He is bigger than your problems, stronger than your fears, and more faithful than your doubts. So stop worrying and start trusting. Let faith strengthen you and watch how God moves in your life. Life has a way of making you feel like everything is out of control. You plan, you prepare, you do everything right, yet things don't always go the way you expect. Suddenly, the job you depended on is gone. The relationship you thought would last falls apart. The health you took for granted is shaken, and the peace you once had turns into uncertainty. In those moments, the weight of the unknown feels unbearable. You ask yourself, what do I do now? How will I fix this? What if things never get better? But the truth is, you were never meant to have all the answers. You were never meant to carry the burden of controlling everything. That is why God asks you to trust Him. It's hard to trust when everything feels unstable. It's hard to let go when you don't know what's coming next. But the reality is, whether you worry about it or not, you are not the one in control. God is. And He has never lost control, not even for a second. What looks like chaos to you is still under His authority. What feels uncertain to you is already part of His divine plan. Just because you can't see the way doesn't mean He isn't making one. Just because you don't have the answers doesn't mean He isn't working. Think about the storms that rise up in life. When the waves are crashing, when the winds are raging, it feels like everything is falling apart. But God isn't shaken by the storm. He isn't panicked. He isn't overwhelmed. He speaks, and the storm listens. He commands, and the winds obey. The same God who created the heavens and the earth, the same God who holds the stars in place, is the same God who is holding your life together. Even when you feel like everything is falling apart, He is still in control. You may not understand why certain things are happening. You may not see the reason for the delay, the hardship, or the struggle, but you are not called to understand everything. You are called to trust. God doesn't ask you to figure it all out. He asks you to lean on Him, to have faith that He is working in ways you cannot see. He is not just watching from a distance. He is actively involved, orchestrating every detail, aligning every piece, turning even the pain and disappointment into something beautiful. When you try to control everything, you carry a weight you were never meant to bear. You exhaust yourself trying to fix what only God can fix. You drain your spirit trying to make sense of things that only He understands. But when you release it into His hands, when you surrender the need to know every detail and simply trust that He is leading you, you find peace. Peace that doesn't come from having all the answers, but from knowing the One who does. Look back at your life. How many times have you worried about things that never even happened? How many nights have you lost sleep over situations that God already had under control? If He provided for you before, why wouldn't He do it again? If He guided you through past storms, why would He leave you now? God is not just in control of some things, He is in control of all things. Even when it looks like nothing is happening, even when it feels like things are spiraling, He is still God and He is still working. So stop trying to carry the weight of something that is already in God's hands. Stop trying to figure out every detail, every outcome, every possibility. You don't have to. God already has a plan, and it is greater than anything you could ever imagine. He is not asking you to worry. He is asking you to trust. Trust that He sees the bigger picture. Trust that He is making a way. Trust that His timing is perfect and His promises never fail. No matter what it looks like right now, God is still in control, and He always will be. Fear has a way of creeping into your heart when you focus too much on the things you cannot control. It starts as a small thought, a simple what if, but before you know it, that thought multiplies. It grows into doubt, into anxiety, into a storm in your mind that keeps you restless, keeps you uneasy, keeps you from moving forward. You replay scenarios in your head, trying to predict every possible outcome, trying to prepare for the worst. But the more you try to control everything, the more fear takes hold. That's because fear thrives in uncertainty. It wants to paralyze you, to keep you from trusting, to keep you from believing that God is bigger than whatever you are facing. But God did not create you to live in fear. He did not call you to carry the weight of tomorrow when He has already promised to take care of it. Worrying about the future won't change it. Overthinking won't solve it. Stressing won't make it any easier. All those things do is drain you, steal your joy, and make you forget that you have a Father in heaven who is already making a way for you. When you hold on to fear, you push away faith. But when you choose to trust, fear loses its grip. You see, fear tells you to focus on what you don't know, what you can't control, what could go wrong. But faith shifts your focus. Faith reminds you of who God is. Faith reminds you that you don't have to know the outcome to know that God is in control. You don't have to see the solution to trust that He has one. Faith doesn't deny reality. It simply acknowledges that God is greater than the reality you see. There's a reason the Bible says, do not be afraid over and over again, because God knows that fear will try to creep in. He knows that when life feels uncertain, your first instinct will be to worry, but He reminds you again and again, don't be afraid. Why? Because He is with you, because He has gone before you, because He has already made a way, even if you don't see it yet. Think about the battles you've already faced in life. There were moments you thought you wouldn't make it through, moments when you felt lost, broken, uncertain. But look at you now. You are still here. You are still standing, not because of your own strength, but because God carried you through. If He did it before, He will do it again. If He was faithful then, He will be faithful now. You have never faced a battle alone, and you never will. Fear will try to tell you that you're not strong enough, that things won't work out, that you are on your own. But God is saying, trust me. I am still in control. I am still working. I am still leading you. When you focus on Him instead of the fear, everything changes. The storm may not disappear immediately. The situation may not change overnight, but your heart will. You will find peace in the middle of uncertainty. You will find strength in the middle of the struggle. You will find courage even when you don't know what's next. That's what happens when you shift from fear to faith. So don't let fear hold you back. Don't let it steal your peace. Don't let it convince you that God has forgotten you. He hasn't. He is still writing your story, still guiding your steps, still fighting for you. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to control everything. You just have to trust that the same God who has always been with you is still with you now. Fear may whisper lies, but faith declares the truth. God is in control, and He will never fail you. There comes a point in life where you have to make a decision. Either you keep carrying the weight of your worries, or you finally release them into God's hands. You've spent nights tossing and turning, replaying the same thoughts, searching for answers that seem just out of reach. You've tried to figure it all out, to plan your way through, to control what feels uncontrollable, but no matter how hard you try, no matter how much effort you put in, the worry remains. It clings to you, making you restless, making you tired. But here's the truth. God never intended for you to live that way. He never asked you to carry the weight of every problem, every fear, every unknown. That is why He says, "Carry your burdens on me, because I care for you." He is not just offering a temporary relief. He is inviting you into a life of trust, a life of surrender, because the moment you truly give your worries to Him, something changes. The fear loses its grip, the stress begins to fade, and the peace that only He can give begins to take over. It's not always easy. Surrendering to God means letting go of your need to control. It means accepting that you won't always have all the answers, and that's okay. It means trusting that even when things don't make sense, even when the path isn't clear, God is still leading you exactly where you need to be. You may not see it now, but He has already gone before you. He has already made a way. He is already working behind the scenes in ways you cannot imagine. Think about a child learning to walk. At first, they stumble, they fall, they get back up, only to fall again. But through it all, their parent is right there, arms stretched out, ready to catch them, ready to guide them. The child may not always understand, but they keep going because they trust the one leading them. That is exactly how God is with you. He is not watching from a distance, waiting for you to figure everything out on your own. No, He is right there beside you, ready to catch you, ready to lead you, ready to lift you when you feel too weak to go on. But here's the key: you have to let Him. You have to make the decision to stop holding on to fear, stop holding on to stress, stop trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place. Worrying about the future won't change it, but trusting God will. Because when you trust Him, you give Him permission to work in your life. You step back and allow Him to move in ways you never could have on your own. You may be in a season where you feel like nothing is happening, like your prayers are going unanswered, like your faith is being tested, like everything around you is uncertain. But I want you to remember this: just because you don't see immediate change doesn't mean God isn't working. Some of His greatest miracles happen in the waiting. Some of His biggest blessings come when you least expect them. So instead of worrying, start worshiping. Instead of stressing, start surrendering. Instead of overthinking, start trusting. God is already holding the pieces of your life together. He is already writing your story in a way that is far better than anything you could imagine. He knows what is ahead. He knows what you need, and He is not going to let you fall. It's time to let go. Let go of the fear. Let go of the stress. Let go of the idea that you have to control everything. You don't. God is in control, and He always has been. So place your worries in His hands. Leave your burdens at His feet and walk forward in faith, because the moment you truly trust Him, you will find the peace you have been searching for all along. There are moments in life when everything feels overwhelming. You've prayed, you've waited, and yet nothing seems to change. The weight of your circumstances grows heavier, and you start to wonder if God even hears you. You ask, why is this happening? Why am I still struggling? Why do I feel so alone? These thoughts fill your mind, making it hard to focus, hard to move forward, hard to believe that things will ever get better. But even in these moments, God is still in control. Even when you don't see a way, He is making one. Even when you feel like nothing is happening, He is working behind the scenes. Your prayers are not unheard. Your tears are not unnoticed. Your struggles are not meaningless. God sees every moment of pain, every ounce of effort, every time you've wanted to give up but kept going anyway, and He is not ignoring you. He is preparing you. Sometimes the waiting season is the most challenging part of the journey. You want answers now. You want breakthrough now, but God's timing is different from yours, and His ways are higher than yours. He knows what you need before you even ask. He knows the road ahead, the challenges you'll face, the lessons you need to learn before you step into what He has for you. If He is making you wait, it is not because He has forgotten you. It is because He is building something in you. Strength, patience, faith. He is stretching you, growing you, shaping you into the person you need to be for the blessing that is coming. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He had dreams of greatness, dreams of leadership, dreams of purpose. But before those dreams became a reality, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Years passed, and it seemed like everything was working against him. But what Joseph didn't see in those moments was that God was positioning him. Every trial, every setback, every hardship was leading him to where he was meant to be. And when the time was right, when the preparation was complete, God elevated him to a position greater than he ever imagined. The same God who was with Joseph is with you. The same God who turned his pain into purpose is working in your life right now. You may not understand it, but that doesn't mean He isn't moving. You may not see the reason yet, but that doesn't mean there isn't one. God never wastes pain. He never wastes tears. Everything you are going through has a purpose, and if you hold on, if you trust Him, you will see that purpose revealed in time, and the enemy wants you to believe that God has forgotten you. He wants you to focus on the pain, to give in to fear, to believe that things will never change. But that is a lie. God has not forgotten you. He has not abandoned you. He is still writing your story, still working out every detail, still leading you towards something greater. You have a choice. You can let worry consume you, let fear control you, let doubt take over, or you can surrender it to God. You can choose to believe that He is still in control, that He's still faithful, that He's still working. You can choose to trust Him even when you don't understand. You can choose to keep walking in faith even when the road is unclear, because one day you will look back on this season and you will see how God was working all along. You will see how He turned the pain into strength, the struggle into testimony, the waiting into preparation. And you will know that He was with you every step of the way. So don't lose heart, don't give up, keep trusting, keep believing, keep holding on, because God is still in control and He is leading you exactly where you need to be. Life has a way of testing you in ways you never expected. You wake up each day trying to stay strong, trying to keep moving forward, trying to hold on to hope. But deep down you feel the weight of everything pressing on you. You feel exhausted, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You've been praying, but the answers seem delayed. You've been fighting, but the battle feels never ending. You've been trusting, but doubt still creeps in. And in the middle of it all, you wonder, God, do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you know how much this is breaking me? And the answer is yes, God sees you. He hears every cry, every whispered prayer, every unspoken hurt you carry in your heart. He knows how tired you are. He knows how much you're struggling. He knows how much you've endured just to make it through another day. And He has not left you, not even for a second. Even when you feel alone, even when you feel forgotten, even when you feel like giving up, God is still there. The enemy wants you to believe that you're on your own. He wants you to think that God has abandoned you, that your prayers don't matter, that your pain is meaningless. But that is a lie. The truth is, God is closer to you in your suffering than you even realize. He is walking with you through this fire, strengthening you in ways you cannot yet see. Every tear you have shed has been counted. Every prayer you have prayed has been heard. And though you may not see the breakthrough yet, that doesn't mean it isn't coming. There is something powerful about surrendering to God when you have nothing left to give. When you stop trying to figure everything out on your own, when you let go of the fear, when you stop carrying burdens you were never meant to carry, you make room for Him to step in. You open the door for Him to move in ways that only He can. And that is when miracles happen. That is when the impossible becomes possible. That is when what seemed hopeless suddenly turns around. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know exactly how things will work out. You just have to trust that the one who holds the universe in His hands is also holding you. He is not just watching from a distance. He is right there in the storm with you, leading you, guiding you, preparing you for what's ahead. And He will not let you fall. Think about Jesus and His disciples on the boat in the middle of the storm. The winds were raging, the waves were crashing, fear filled their hearts, and yet Jesus was asleep. Not because He didn't care, but because He knew something they didn't. He knew that no storm was greater than the power of God. He knew that no matter how fierce the winds, no matter how high the waves, his Father was still in control. And when the disciples woke him in fear, he simply spoke, and the storm was stilled. That is the same God who is with you now. The same God who calmed the storm with a word is the same God who can calm the storm in your life. The same God who made a way for the Israelites through the Red Sea is the same God who will make a way for you. The same God who brought Lazarus back from the dead is the same God who can breathe life into your situation. There is nothing too hard for him, nothing too broken that he cannot restore, nothing too lost that he cannot redeem. So instead of carrying the weight alone, give it to him. Instead of letting fear control you, surrender it to him. Instead of focusing on what you cannot do, trust in what he can do, because he is still writing your story and he is not finished yet. The pain you feel now will not last forever. The struggles you are facing are not the end. God is still moving, still working, still preparing something greater for you. And one day you will look back on this moment and realize that even in your weakest moments, even when you felt like giving up, God was carrying you all along.